Next up is Dr. Thomas Fudge from the UK, showing us innovation in the biomass space. Just we discussed, but we're talking about energy generation now and see how we can do this more efficiently. The next two companies, Bavarian and WASE, will be on that space. So listen in carefully. What these gentlemen are doing is quite innovative, and you would have never known what you can do with electrocuting some poor bacteria. So, Thomas, welcome.
Thank you very much. So hi, my name's Tom. I'm co-founder and CEO of WASE, and we are unlocking the power of waste to make it the fuel of the future. And we're doing this by working with industrial manufacturers to treat their organic waste on site to generate biogas that they can then use to decarbonize their thermal energy demands. But it doesn't stop there, because we're scaling it up to look at centralized facilities so we can generate biomethane that can then decarbonize our grid. So I want to introduce you to one of our customers, Andy. He's founder of Hepworth Brewery, and he founded the brewery to produce great tasting beer that used local produce and that was sustainable. But during his journey, he has had lots of different challenges. Breweries generate lots of wastewater, like a lot of other food and drinks manufacturers. For every pint, you probably produce 3 to 4 pints of wastewater. And this wastewater has a lot of organic content, so you have to then treat it really effectively before you can discharge. But there's quite strict regulation on what you can do. So Andy isn't able to discharge this locally, so he has a truck that comes to his site, collects that wastewater every single day, and then drives it to another processing facility. And that truck drives over an equivalent of a year from the tip of Scotland down to South Africa and the part of the way back, just driving wastewater. Andy also has another challenge, that he uses a lot of thermal energy to produce beer. And he has to use like gas boilers, and in his case, he's got an oil boiler because he doesn't have a gas connection. But Andy knows that that wastewater that he's driving off and paying hundreds of thousands of pounds a year has an inherent energy that he can extract using the right technologies. So he was starting to look at different solutions to implement that. And he looked at anaerobic digestion. But these systems are big. They have slow treatment times, and they're inefficient at really providing the quality of treatment that is required to discharge locally. And this is where we've come in. We've got a small plug-and-play solution where Andy can then treat his wastewater on site. He can generate sustainable energy that he can then use to decarbonize his thermal energy demands. He can meet the regulatory discharge requirements, so he can discharge the water back into the local ecosystem by combining our system with a reed bed. So we also then increase biodiversity locally. And ultimately, the whole process saves so much carbon. So if we look at the difference between anaerobic digestion and our technology, anaerobic digestion has been around for a long time. And it's a simple process using bacteria. And you have a giant tank, and these bacteria break down the organic compounds in 4 stages. But you have different bacteria that need to do this process, and they start competing against each other. And this really can slow down the whole process. On really efficient systems, you can get 20 days, but most processes are like 60, in some cases 100 days to treat all that waste. And then you generate biogas, but this biogas has a lot of carbon dioxide, so only about 50 to 60% is methane, reducing the energy and calorific value, which makes it harder for him to integrate into his existing boilers. And we're using a process called electromethanogenesis. And in this, we have these bioelectrodes where we grow bacteria. This means that we can speed up the process, and we can also increase the quality of the biogas and increase the amount of gas that we generate as well. So if we look at how this works, on these electrodes, we have these electroactive bacteria. And these bacteria are found everywhere, and they adapt depending on what you feed the system, just like your gut microbiome. On these bacteria, they form biofilms. And as they break down the organic compounds within the wastewater, they pass electrons from those organic compounds, releasing them, and then pass them through each other onto our electrode surface area. Now we capture those electrons, and we supply a small electrical charge to the process. And this means that we can then start generating hydrogen ions within the system. And then what we do is we convert that carbon dioxide fraction of the biogas into methane, increasing the energy yields of the process. And this is a really energy efficient process. Unlike electrolyzers, where you have to put a lot of energy into the process, because we're using the bacteria and harnessing their power and their ability, it's a really efficient way of converting carbon dioxide into methane. Now, we've integrated that solution into our modular sites, and here you can see one of our facilities that we've just launched. I was down there on Tuesday. This is in North Wales. And one of the real benefits of having this plug-and-play solution is that we get really efficient, quick installation. So for a normal anaerobic digestion system, you might have 6 months of planning, design, and then you'll be lucky if you can build it within another 6 months, because you're probably looking at another 12 months to build. We're working towards get our system installed in under 6 weeks, because it's all fabricated off land and then can be implemented really quickly, making it really good value for our customers. Now, when we're utilizing the energy, we can then help integrate it into their existing operations. So some customers have industrial boilers where they're using gas from the grid, and we can just have a quick in-change of the head so that we can put the gas straight in there. So the barriers to entry and switching from biogas is really easy. We can then put it into combined heat and power systems. They can generate heat and electricity. And there's other technologies that you'll hear about today of how the biogas could be utilized. Now, if we compare our technology to existing anaerobic digestion systems, we can treat the waste 3 to 10 times faster. We increase energy yields over 30%. And we increase the amount of organics that are broken down. So this is really key for sort of discharging locally, but it also extracts that last bit of energy from the waste. We can operate at lower temperatures, and this unlocks other types of waste streams where it's not economically viable to heat it up to higher temperatures to unlock that energy. And we have an intelligent biosensing system. And this is really game-changing for sort of decentralized applications. Because with bacterial and biological systems, they are really complex because you just don't know what they want. It's like trying to talk to a 3-month-old. You just don't know. They could just be crying at you. So this means you have a really high operator burden because you're having to constantly analyze, is it the right temperature? Is it at the right pH? And a lot of facilities don't have this expertise. So then they have to do reactive operation. They're like, oh, actually, my gas is dropping, or the system is failing, so now we slow down the process, so you have to have very high safety thresholds. And this was an issue with one of our customers where they had a biological system, and their wastewater would fluctuate in the amount of organics every single day, so it was constantly overfeeding the system, underfeeding the system, and it ended up they had to shut the system down after 6 months because they kept discharging and not meeting the regulatory requirements. So where we're generating a biological current that is generated by the bacteria, this is like a Fitbit to understand how the health of the system is operating. So we get constant signals to say, yeah, the bacteria are healthy. Do they need feeding? Do they not need feeding? So we can start communicating with the bacteria. This means we can automate and really optimize the process, and we're integrating machine learning so that we do not need skilled operators on the ground. We can monitor the water quality that's coming out of the system, so you do not have to have that extensive lab testing. So for Andy, by integrating this technology, he's enabled himself to have £140,000 worth of cost avoidance every single year. He can generate 360 megawatts of renewable energy, and he can save 100 tons of carbon. But Andy's not alone. In the EU, 99% of food and drinks manufacturers are SMEs, and current solutions are all designed for big corporates like Diageo, Heineken, and they generate 50% of the food. So we're now scaling up, moving into sort of distilleries, cooked food manufacturers, paper manufacturing as well. But it doesn't stop there, because we are scaling up the technology to integrate into large centralized solutions, where you can then take food waste from households, crop waste, and then start generating biomethane so it can go into the grid, and you can start decarbonizing the natural gas grid. So here you can see a case study that we did with an AD operator, and we're really extracting a lot more energy from their waste by integrating the technology directly or taking out the digestate, and we can then further extract energy from the system. So the way that we can do that is by integrating our electrodes into these large tanks, or we can have a bolt-on solution, really making it easy for these operators. And this is something that we're trialing now and scaling up the technology that will be launched in a few years' time. And by integrating that, we can make these AD centralized facilities intelligent. So you can reduce the burden and you can really optimize the process. You can make sure the bacteria are really healthy and resilient and you're feeding them the right amount at the right times. You can boost the amount of energy that these facilities can have, and they're faster. So instead of building new infrastructure, you can maximize the infrastructure you already have. So we've got 1 unit deployed. We're deploying 2 units this year, and we're going to have a further 3 units next year, scaling up across food and drinks manufacturers and anaerobic digestion facilities. And together, we can protect our most precious resources by utilizing waste and seeing that as a resource that can be used for the energy transition. Thank you very much.
Thomas, great presentation. Very cool to see also Extantia that you are investing in these kind of ventures. As impact investor, we are really happy to see it. So taking one question with regard to the hydrogen that you combine with CO2 and electrons. What normally happens?
So in this process, it will be maybe sometimes hydrogen sulfide that is generated, which is actually really problematic because it's very corrosive and you have to actually remove it. So we see that we actually really reduce the amount of hydrogen sulfide within the gas. And then it can form other sort of chemical compounds, ammonia, but it really depends on what you are feeding the system. So we're really helping utilizing that and unlocking that to go into the...
You said you're scaling to 3 installation next year. That doesn't sound like a lot of scaling to me. Is that, are you at the very beginning? How do you see the real scaling going forward?
Yeah, so we are sort of in the early beginning. We've just had, turning on our first system this week for us, which is a really great opportunity. We'll have 3 sites next year, but these will be bigger sites. So the current sites we're implementing are 1 units, whereas the other sites are going to be multiple units facilities.
Actually, my question went into exactly the same area. We had the question about inhibitors earlier. So if you think about, like, I don't know, 3-5 years into the future, what is like the biggest burden to get hundreds or thousands out of these things out?
So the biggest challenge for sort of scaling up will definitely be sort of the supply chain. And that's something that we really need to work on, looking at how we can really effectively manufacture these systems and train up the teams so that they can be deployed really quickly and efficiently. And I would say that is some of the biggest challenge that we're really working towards at the moment, really looking at our manufacturing processes, how can we reduce the cost of goods of this system, how can we simplify the manufacturing, so that we can then start really mass producing these units on a huge scale.
Thomas, what is your ask to all the people with money here in the room?
Yeah. So we're going to be doing our Series A next year. We're going to be raising 30 million. And what we would love is, please just get in touch now. I can add you to sort of our investor newsletter, keep you updated of sort of the value that we're adding, and you can join that round. But if you know food and drinks manufacturers or industrial manufacturers, please connect us, because we know we can really help them decarbonize their thermal energy, and we can really start accelerating that energy transition.
I just want to ask about the fee structure, like where you making revenue in that sense? Are you selling then the biogas to the blend owner?
Yeah, so the primary model that we're really focusing on at the moment is we'll sell the units to the customer. They will own that, and then they'll pay us for the remote monitoring fee going forward. We are testing a WASE as a service model as well, and we're validating that, and we've got debt finance to implement that on a few units, where our customers will pay us for the water that we treat, and then we sell the energy back to them. So what we're doing now is we're validating the operational requirements of that system, working sort of with debt providers to look at how we can sort of reduce sort of the interest rates, really building out a robust model that then they can see that we can then really easily replicate.
Just out of interest, what's the lifetime of the product?
Yeah, so the reactors are going to be like a minimum of 20 years. There's no moving components inside the system. We're estimating the electrodes would last 10 years as a minimum, but there's a very high chance they could last a lot longer. And one of the benefits that we have with our electrodes is that we don't really need to use rare materials. They don't poison because the catalyst is the bacteria, and that bacteria just constantly grows and is constantly rejuvenating. So we can use really robust materials, which you wouldn't necessarily be able to use in an electrochemical process, especially in sort of water treatment where they can really get damaged quite often. Cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you very much.